You like that?
We are live. Morningwood Radio, Hunter McIntyre, and the Ironman Guru, Richard Diaz. Welcome.
You like that, Rich? I put you down as the Ironman Guru. He called me this morning. He said, "What do you got? What do you want to put the title as?" He goes, "Just interview with Rich Diaz." I was like, "No, Ironman Guru." I'll give you guys an abbreviated thing real quick. When I first met Rich had nothing to do with obstacle course racing. He thought he was an Ironman Guru. He was currently in the Ironman game. He was doing lots of training and testing on world-class boxers and all the top what am I trying to say? Ice skaters, not ice skaters, hockey players in the world. And when I came in his room, he's like, "Who the hell is this deadbeat? And what's this stupid sport?" He wanted nothing to do with it. He took my money. He let me jog on his treadmill a couple times, still thought I was a deadbeat. And then I don't know where he decided to, the tides turned and all of a sudden he got excited about obstacle course racing. But I'll tell you right now, this man was entrenched in the Ironman and, basically triathlon community, wanted nothing to do with us. Now he's on the dark side.
Yeah. I got to tell you, because you asked me to do this yesterday, I started thinking back as to when I first kind of got involved in this whole thing. Do you know it was 41 years ago?
Wow. You did your first, your first one, or you trained somebody for one?
No, I put on, I was the owner of the Maui Triathlon. So I put on a triathlon. It was a half Ironman distance course on the island of Maui. And then I did it following, my company at the time was called Competitive Sports Enterprises. We put on events. Yep. We put on criterium bike races. We put on ocean swims. We put on ultra distance events. And we also put on a triathlon. So getting to your question, I was competing in those events back in the day because I was your age. I was 30 years old. And I'm like, I was in it. So, and I was thinking back today, because again, just trying to get my mind right for this conversation, is back then, there were no computers. Nobody had like a computer at home where they could pull up training peaks. And by the way, there was no heart rate monitors either. There was no heart rate monitors. There was no power meters. I have a video. I'm going to share this video with you one day, which was the event we did in 1983 that went to the Cannes Film Festival, which was coverage of my event on the island of Maui in 1983. So if you look at
6 years before I was born, people.
By the way, and so what's cool about this video is if you just look at the field of athletes, they were swimming in Speedos. The bicycles did not have anything fancy. They're just metal frame bikes with, the toe cages, and there was no helmets back then. There was like these leather bonnets that you could opt to wear. You didn't have to wear them in the race. And the cycling shorts were made of wool. I've got video of Scott Molina and Scott Tinley on their bikes, and they're wearing like wool socks, and this is on the island of Maui, by the way.
You can't go too deep because I've got a whole flow of the show, and I'm going to have to button you up there because I truly do. One of the biggest things I do want to address today is the difference between Ironman back in the 80s and 90s versus Ironman now, because I'm strongly a believer that the Ironman athletes have not necessarily gotten better. I think the tech has gotten better. So I really want to dig into that with you there, but just so that people know who you are, so that we can really set the tone for what, this guru aspect. First of all, I just want to say, how long have you been in the sports world? And you already answered that. 41 years is basically right around this time, which is crazy because it's older than myself. And it's probably older than most people listening to the show. And, what was kind of the initial stage of you getting started in this? Because, I think everybody, there's all these, what I call, false prophets these days. People that act like they know so much and they have a good Instagram channel. And I don't think they really have any history. 41 years in a sport is insane. I've only been competing for about 10 to 11 years. And what I knew 5 years ago versus what I knew 8 years ago and all that kind of stuff. It completely changes all the time. So let's really kind of get into the roots of this thing. You started 41 years ago was when you hosted your first triathlon, but when did you become really a coach and kind of a student of sport?
Well, it's funny because that never happened on purpose. My aspiration was not to like dovetail my career into becoming a coach and clinician. It's kind of a funny road. I don't think we even have time to talk about it, other than let me just say that I got fascinated with the aspect of identifying the capacity of athletes rather than concerning myself with how well I can perform. And
was that just in search of just trying to figure out your own performance? Was it
no, not at all. I mean, well, first of all, I ran into some issues. I had some health issues that really got in the way of my ability to run. Not to go crazy with this, but I had spinal cord surgery, which really kind of messed things up. And now to this day, I struggle with it if I try to run. So I was basically out of it. And I at the time I started to really get involved. I owned health clubs, and just the dumb logic was, in order for me to hire a trainer, I needed to know more than him. How do you hire a trainer when you don't even know what training's all about, right?
You got to get books, dude. You got to read.
So, buddy, let me tell you, that's what I did. I studied.
This is the biggest problem with this generation of people is they listen to Joe Rogan and they think they know the full capacity of a subject now. They listen to a 2-hour podcast with a bunch of dudes smoking joints and talking about, astrophysics. And they're like, yep, no big deal. I know everything now.
Yeah, it took me a long time to know what I know. Let me just put it like that. And it wasn't by intention to start getting involved in other people's lives with their coaching.
Can I ask you something real quick? This would just be an interesting metric because I really want people to understand something. I, in my lifetime, have taken probably about 8 to 12 VO2 max tests. And most of them, if not all of them, have been with Rich, maybe 2 outside of it. I have also probably done about a half dozen RMR tests. About 3 of them have been with Rich. I've done a couple lactate tests, almost all of them with Rich. So that's basically the scope of my decade of competition in that realm. Now, Rich, in your entire history of testing athletes and understanding the physiological process of what an athlete goes through to move through time and space, how many individual tests have you done throughout time?
Oh, my God. It's funny. I talk about this often when people come to see me, and I'm scanning through the reports, and I've never taken the time to count them because you realize that I was doing testing on equipment when there was no hard drives on the equipment. So the record was a hard record where I had to print something, and that was the only record I had. And somewhere in my confines of my house here, I have 2 binders that are about this thick, which are just reports that I did before I moved into the newer, more upscale testing equipment. And so I would say, if I had to just kind of generalize, I'd say literally a few thousand athletes.
Wow. Yeah.
So were you analyzing all that data just by hand and your own mental math?
Well, so the equipment provides me with a snapshot of what occurred during the test. Mm-hmm. And so obviously you need to understand what that information means. And so the more tests I've done, the more realization I gained about the cause and effect relationship with the work and the data that's being revealed. And so it's, people, maybe tomorrow you can go out and buy one of these metabolic carts and start testing people. I could teach a monkey to do it. But the magic is interpreting the data, knowing what it is you're seeing and what that means to the athlete that you're working with. So, and that's taken a long time. It's taken years and years and years to really get better at that.
So to give everybody understanding of why I kind of brought this triad together today, I am going to be competing in an Ironman in Arizona, November 20th. Now, Rich and I have been working together since 2014, so we have almost 10 years under our belt working together. Rich, throughout this time, has tested me and worked with me through my training in Spartan Race, my training to go to the CrossFit Games, and my training to win High Rocks World Championships. Now, just to give you guys kind of like a snapshot of what that looks like, my VO2 max was 12 points higher when I was training for Spartan Race, and I could hold a my lactate threshold capabilities up to upwards of 90% of my VO2 max. And Rich and I would hold this thing for half marathons while doing bike path training. And I'm talking about like 5:15 to 5:30 miles, just over and over and over again, back to back. Let's fast forward 2-3 years later, when I was going to CrossFit, I could barely hold 1.5 of those miles at that pace without blowing up. Everything changes so much in the way that your body's able to process things. Just because you were an athlete in a one way at one time does not mean you are going to hold on to that capability over time. And the reason why I'm bringing everyone together now is because I just won not Ironman. I just won High Rocks World Championships, a 57-minute long championship of a mixture of functional fitness and running. It pretty much lactate capability the entire time. And I won that in May. So maybe 6 to 8 months ago, 6 months ago. Now in 6 weeks, I'm going to take on what is pretty much considered the most challenging endurance event in the world. And it's more challenging than other endurance events that may be longer, because this is actually 3 different movements, swim, bike, run. And then the other thing would be is you actually can race this. Very few endurance races at ultra distance capacity are there athletes that are able to toe the line and stay around 80 to 90% of their capabilities for the entire time. And what we really want to talk about with Rich today, and the reason why we call him the guru, is we're going to start to kind of dig into the weeds and understanding how a body really takes on an Ironman, rather than just thinking about the swim cap and the goggles, the bikes and the shoes, and then just getting out there with a baseball cap and a decent pair of shoes to finish a marathon. What does it really take a body to move through this time and space? Knowing that Rich knows my body, pretty much anybody else. Hang up on that guy.
Okay.
We're going to kind of try to get to understand from Rich's point of view what it's really going to take me to get through start to finish at a high capacity race. So first of all, Rich, I just want to ask your prediction. What do you think my capability of getting to the finish of an Ironman is right now, time-wise? Because we sat down and did this for the marathon, and you guessed it, and we hit it. I beat your time by, I think.
You froze up there, bud.
You froze there for a sec.
Yep. Do you guys hear me?
I can now, yeah.
Oh, I said, what do you think? What's your prediction for my time for Ironman? Because I beat the marathon prediction that you gave me last time.
And what was your marathon time again? Refresh my memory.
2:56. And I spent a couple minutes in the bathroom. I was having a good time.
All right. So there's a couple things. Ironman, when you conjure up the term Ironman, realize that there's Ironman events all over the world. And depending on the course and where you're located when you're doing this thing has everything to do with the finish times. Now, in fairness, being in Arizona, it's going to be not quite as difficult as it will be in Kona. You're not going to Kona. Let's talk about Arizona. Now, fresh running a marathon and pulling a 2:50-ish time, that's pretty stellar. I mean, and quite, granted, the amount of time you allowed yourself to prepare for it was ridiculous. I mean, you did not put in the type of time you needed but that I to this day still coach Ironman athletes, right? I have clients that are going to I have a client that will be an Ironman with you in Arizona coming up.
I'm going to put the beat down on him.
And it's his second time. And he's a pretty good athlete. His run game could use some improvement. So the issue is this. And when you start talking about the differences between back in the day, what these guys were able to do versus today, the biggest influence in this event is the bike.
100%.
Because the technology in the development of the bikes is so profoundly different than it was back in the day.
Yeah.
And
I just got myself an Ironman bike, and being in that tuck, like I am very, very easily able to hold 24 to 26 miles an hour for 90 minutes. Like I don't bike past that, but we just did a 4.5 hour ride, 73 miles, 6,500 feet of climbing, and I was wrecking it. Anytime there was flats, I was in the mid to high 20s. No problem.
So let me share with you, since I got prepared for this today.
Yeah.
It's not like me, but I did it. The world record on the marathon course on the bike the average pace was 26, almost 27 miles an hour, average pace for the men,
Freakish.
and over 25 miles an hour for the women.
That's
So
even scarier.
the fastest bike split.
I never want to see that woman ever. I don't want to meet her.
The fastest
I don't
bike
know what she did
split
to get there.
ever on a Ironman course was 4:09 for 112 miles. And then the woman, surprisingly, the women are catching up. The women world record, 4:26 on the bike. And
this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I would like to take one of these women with these capabilities, and I would like to take them and put them through the Tour de France. Like, they should take one of these women and put her through the Tour de France. And I just, at that point, it's not technology getting you to the top of the mountain. It's 100% aerobic capability. Whereas, are these bikes so good these days and so efficient and so effective that you can really narrow that gap between a very high level male and a high level female?
well, so
if you think about just running alone, what's the record for the 1500 meter for female? It's got to be like 4:30, 4:28. And the men are almost a minute faster.
So let me share with you these other splits. So
Yeah.
kind of get into context what this event will take you if you want to set a world record. The men's fastest run pace average was 6:07, and that's a 2:40 finish time. And then the women
wasn't Mark Allen like 2:41 and held that
2:46, I think it was.
Are you sure?
No, I can look it up.
Hey, you mind Googling that real quick, Ryan? Mark Allen's Ironman marathon time.
It wasn't 2:41. I think he was like 2:46 or 2:49, if I'm not mistaken. So, but the point of the matter is that there's not much difference in the finish times of 10 years ago, 20 years ago versus today. Those run splits, they moved by about 10 minutes max. Where
these
the bike
guys are running in carbon plates now. They have these carbon plates.
Yeah, so yeah, the bike splits have significantly improved. Like if you threw down a 5-hour event 20 years ago, you were flying, and now they beat that by about an hour, which is pretty significant. And by the way, the swim world record was 46:29, and the women only a minute behind, 2 minutes behind, 48:14.
Crazy.
Yeah. So the women are catching up to the men in this event, and the reason is, I believe, is the energetics, the ability to stay aerobic for a longer period of time.
Well, women hold less muscle mass, and muscle mass processing oxygen costs more. So do you think that has something to do with it?
Yeah, but so you got to think in relative terms, though, because the biggest issue with cost of energy is your weight.
But hold on, just give me 2 seconds here. Let's just say you have a 150-pound male and a 150-pound female. The 150-pound male has 8% body fat. The 150-pound female has 12% body fat. I know it is weight, but you know that muscle is still going to cost. It has more potential, but also it costs more. It's hungrier meat. Does that have anything to do with it?
Yeah, but that's not the argument. The argument is that the women that we're competing with here are traditionally much, much lighter than the men that are competing here. So there is a deviation here in that respect. So,
and women are starting to do more incredible things in the ultra distance world than men are almost.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look at, when you look at ultra events, these women are really, really fast. So 8:28, Mark Allen, 1990, Kona. What does it say?
8:28.
No, but what was his marathon?
Yeah, that's his total time. But what was his run split?
Yeah.
Okay. Hang on.
Enhance. Hold on, but Rich, you didn't give this to me. You got it. I'm going to write this down so I have something to write down and prove you wrong. What do you guess right now, Hunter McIntyre? And I'll be totally honest. Like, I'm working out like I always do. I'm not swimming that much. I'm still doing my weightlifting, but what is your guess
11 hours.
What's your predicted time?
11 hours for the event.
11 hours. Wow. You are a piece of shit.
Well, I just think that you're going to have a come to Jesus meeting when you get off that bike.
Dude, I got
2 hours, 40 minutes.
240.
What I tell you, dude?
40.
What did I tell you?
9 record still remains and has stood for 21 years for a reason.
What was the reason?
That he's a freak, dude.
He's just crazy.
He does mushrooms.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean,
Does he do microdosing?
These people do not understand, and this is why I want to get. I want to get into the weeds.
Just because it's on Google doesn't mean it's true. Just let me get that to you.
It is true. I've researched this a couple times.
The current world record run split was by this. His
French
name
guy.
is Jan Frodeno from Germany.
Ferdino, yeah.
For whatever, and he's like 240. He might be a 239 and change. You know, I was converting kilometers to miles per hour, and so, you know, I might have missed it by a bit. But so the point of the matter is that when you take the guy off the bike and he runs, there's not going to be a significant difference. I mean, look at the marathon times to begin with over the period of 10 or 15 or 20 years. Not a big difference. I know guys, I've interviewed guys that have run sub 2:10 marathons in the 70s, right? And so that stands up really well even today. So, you know, going into the only technology available to you at this point is the nutrition you take on, the shoes you're wearing, and the ability to track metrics. That's basically it. The rest of it's just you running. And so there's not a big difference in the individual performance from the unit, which is the person. It's got to do with the accoutrements. Like the bike, you could really hammer a big difference of time out when you've got, you know, aero wheels, aero posture, aero helmet, and
so if you had
the whole thing.
If you had to guess, what is the difference in overall cost metabolically for an Ironman athlete back then to do the same time that they do now? Let's say championship level, they do an 8-hour Ironman.
It's not going to be any different. So like if it's an 8-hour event, if you finish in 8 hours in the same course, your body you're bringing the same engine to play. So your cost is going to be the same.
No, but you have to understand this though. These bikes, you're able to, the efficiency, just thinking about it, like they've done all these tests with the aerodynamics and everything. It costs like up to 18% less energy to cover that distance.
Well, that means you get there sooner.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to understand holding 25 miles an hour on the bike with a modern day bike versus 25 miles an hour on the bike versus a 1990 bike. What's the difference here if you had to guess?
All right. So that's an interesting question. So there's a couple of things that really have been a bone of contention with me with the sport of cycling and triathlon in the later years, because they've shied away on the bike. They've shied away from looking at heart rate. What they're doing is, and you've done it yourself, they're looking at functional threshold power.
Yep.
All right. And the hole in that process is that functional threshold power is measuring yield. What are you able to produce over a particular timeline? What it doesn't take into account is the cost associated with the yield. And I think that, I mean, it's great to look at power, but it's also very important to figure out what it's costing you to do what you're doing. And minus that part of the equation, you're kind of stuck in the mud. So getting back to what you're talking about yield. If you improve the mechanics of the bike, your posture on the bike and such, you're going to move through space faster.
Yeah.
And it's going to be less expensive to do it. And so that's going to do two things. Your yield's going to go up and your cost of work's going to go down.
That's my point. And like with these carbon plated shoes, you know, I will be honest, like I started running in carbon plated shoes a while ago, and I even ran High Rocks World Championships in a carbon plated shoe. And I feel the difference. I actually set the world record in a non-carbon plated shoe, but then I raced world championships in a carbon plated shoe. And you feel like you've taken crack cocaine.
Well, look, I'm you know, the shoe technology, you got to go a step further than just saying you got a carbon plate. I want to know what's beneath it and above it. I mean, if you've got a big stack height, which is the popularity in shoes these days, you're missing the point. You don't want all that stack height. You don't want all that cushion between you. Newton's had a carbon plate in their shoe before people talked about carbon plates. And the carbon plate would be underneath the lugs that are underneath the shoe.
You and I get into this conversation all the time. At Olympic trials just recently, 37th place was the first shoe that was a minimalist shoe. The rest of them were maximal stack shoes with carbon plates.
With better athletes.
Dude, anybody could get them at the Olympic trials this last time. You could literally
what
come
I'm telling
up
you is the guys that won are the guys who were better athletes. So if you look at Eliud Kipchoge, who just set that 2:01 marathon record, wearing those atrocious looking Nike shoes, I bet you money if you said, look, we're going to pay you the same amount of money to run the way you want to, he's not going to run in that shoe. He's going to probably run barefoot, and he's probably going to be faster. My opinion. My opinion.
We'll get back into this later. We're going to take away from the core of this conversation, which is Ironman. But we didn't really address it. Okay, let's just say this. We'll reconfigure this question. Somebody, let's just say, with the same VO2 max, same weight, the same person on a bike in 1989, the Iron War, versus now, 2022, it's happening today, I think, the World Championships. How much more distance per hour do you think the person would be able to cover on a bike, on modern day bike versus an old day bike?
Shit, that's a tough question. I mean, I'm not that analytical that I can just scrub off those numbers for you. I can only tell you that.
Guess. Is it 10%, 20%?
I would say that I can tell you personally, going from traditional race bike race wheels to aerodynamic 72-inch flange, or not 72 millimeter flange, just a deep dish wheel. I would probably improve my output by about 3 to 4 miles per hour.
Really?
On average. Yeah. That's a big
That's
difference.
alarming.
It's a big difference, dude.
I was riding one. I have one for the Ironman, and I was freaked out by how fast I was going. But you know what the scariest thing is? When wind starts to catch that big wheel and you're getting pushed or pulled, and we were going through the mountains. So we're not going straight lines. We're like coming into curves and stuff. And these big wind gusts were pulling us across the face of these mountains. I almost crashed several times. I don't understand.
Is it a full disc?
Yeah, full disc, like this much depth.
So 808s? Is that?
I have no clue what that means.
Zip? What kind of tire or wheel was it?
I have no clue. A friend of mine dropped them off as a gift to like help me train for Ironman. Very grateful.
Front and back?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so can I tell you something was really interesting? I did a podcast years ago with one of the designers for Reynolds. As a matter of fact, he's the one that sent me my wheels. Huh?
Is that a wheel?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So he's the guy that designs these wheels for Reynolds. Reynolds is, top flight stuff. And he was explaining to me that these flanges act like a sail on a sailboat. They will actually assist you in going faster, even with crosswinds, assuming that you're strong enough to hold the bike upright. So it becomes a function of how well you're able to steady the bike when the wind is getting into those wheels.
Well, that bike ride in Kona is famous for the amount of headwind that they get.
Yeah. And
I just can only imagine like the amount of torque that I was having on my body while trying to stay in this tuck was terrifying. I don't know if that was just something I have to get used to. And these guys are just kicking ass regardless of the wind.
You're right. I mean, listen, I've been down that road. I've gone down the PCH on my bike when it was big Santa Anas. And, even where the dunes are, the sand was blowing across there. I was getting sand blasted from the side. It scared the crap out of me. And after that, when the wind was big, I wouldn't ride the bike. So I get it. I mean, so in Kona, it's never a side wind. It's either a tail or a headwind. In Arizona, you're not going to face that. So you're pretty cool.
So I'm going to have a 9-hour Ironman is what you're trying to say.
Yeah. So I just think what's going to happen is that if you're going to try, it depends on how much time you spend on the bike. And I know this is going to be a question sooner or later, how you would prepare for an event like this. And this is not going to bode well with you, I know. But if you just, I don't know you, and you came to me and said, look, I want to do Ironman first time, what do I do? It's at least a year project. It's at least a year project. Somewhere along the way, I'm going to want you to run at least 1 or 2 marathons.
We have 6 weeks, Rich.
Yeah, I got it. I told you, I knew it was you. So So the point of the matter is I would say that I would spend a great deal of time on my bike. A great amount of time on that bike. I'm talking, and you've been talking about 70 mile, 80 mile. You need to get up. You need to, and I said this to you last time we spoke about it. You need to throw down a brick. You need to put in a 100-miler behind a 20-mile run.
Well, that's what I'm doing. So this weekend, I am going to do the Kodiak 100. It's a mountain bike race. Whatever. Power output on the bike is what I'm focusing on. So it's going to probably take me, it's 100K with 8,000 feet of climbing. It's probably going to take me the better part of 6 to 7 hours. And then I'm going to go out and run like a 5 to 8 miler right afterwards.
Just for fun.
What's that?
Just for fun.
Well, no, I just have to prepare for this thing. But I will say this is pretty amazing. This is data right here. This is a bike loop that I've been doing for years. And the only reason why it only shows me of doing it for the past couple of years is because I lost a watch and had to start another Strava.
Can you read it to me? I can't really make that out.
It's kind of fuzzy.
Oh, sorry. Literally for the past, I don't know why, but the past 6 weeks, I've been PRing all my bike loops by like an hour-long bike loop. I PR'd by 10 minutes. Yesterday, this really, really hard bike loop that I did, I PR'd by 9 minutes. I'm having humongous results on the bike. And I'm also PRing a lot of runs that I have here in the mountains, which is substantial. And I know it's different than road running. It's just like continuous hold pace, threshold type stuff. I have been putting the work in, and it is impressive.
So let's slow down for a second. I want to ask you, are you paying attention to the cost of work? And are you guiding yourself relative to a particular level of intensity?
I'm keeping my heart rate like Maffetone method. I'm keeping my heart rate below 145 at all times.
Well, that's going to teach you to finish.
Oh, what else would you suggest in this position? To be honest, I just want to finish. I want to break 10 hours and I want to finish. I'm not trying to teach myself to race this thing.
But see, here's the dilemma. In order to get that 10-hour mark you're talking about, the bike split's got to be massive, because
I'm looking around about a 5-hour to 5:15 bike.
And can I tell you, that's massive. That's for 112 miles. That's massive. And you're not going to be able to do it aerobically. So this is the thing that it chills me to the bone when I hear people talk about their aerobic engine. You know, they're saying things like this because they heard somebody else say something like this. You're not going to be able. Let's look at it. So you're looking at absolutely. If you can access your fat stores for 5.5 hours, you're golden, because you're going to conserve all that carbohydrate that is going to get tapped into. You can only store, if God willing and the creek don't rise, you can only store up to maybe 2,000 calories from carbohydrate on your body.
Yep.
And so and I know you're expending let's just say at around 140 right now, at about 140 beats per minute for you're spending about 900 calories an hour. And I'd say about half that's coming from sugar. So Just do the math again. So we're talking about an 8, 9, 10 hour event. You start doing the math and you're not going to have carbohydrate left if you're dipping into it. So you're either going to have to slow way, way, way down to finish and get into more fat and feed, or if you're going to try to do what you're trying to do, you're going to have to make friends with that lactate. So you're going to have to dip over that threshold, and you're going to have to spend a lot of time right at that window, right at that prepuce, so your body gets a chance to figure out how to repurpose that lactate you're developing.
Well, that's what I'm doing. So you and I have done the testing. I'm at 140 to 150 beats per minute on almost all these workouts.
But can I tell you something? That's on the bike. We've never tested you on a bike. And so the point of the matter is that an athlete like you, your scores are always going to be a lot higher threshold-wise running than they will be on the bike. Because, I mean, as much as you've been riding the bike, your jam is running. I mean, if I had to say which one of these things are you better at, it's going to be the run all day long. So now if I took a real seasoned, like a Cat 1 cyclist, and did the same thing with him, his score on the bike threshold-wise is going to be way higher than it will be running. His mechanical efficiency running is not going to be anywhere near what it is on the bike. Yep. So he's going to be much more economical on the bike than someone like yourself. So that's why I said you need to marry that bike, and you need to dip into that lactate and let your body figure out how to access that energy rebate that we talk about a lot. Because you're not going to be able to stay aerobic on that bike and be able to pull off what you're trying to pull off. and I can I go a step further. If I were to take someone like well, you pick. Well, you've been talking about Mark Allen. I promise you, if I put him on the bike and I set him at that 25 miles an hour on the bike, he's not aerobic. He might be aerobic for the first hour, but after that, his body's going to heat up. He's going to get into that lactate. So his body's going to have to find
you're suggesting more intensity
way of getting into that lactate and using it.
You're suggesting a higher intensity being held.
I'm suggesting that there should be a meld of rolling into the intensity and out of the intensity. So, and not crazy intensity. I'm not looking for real big numbers. I'm just looking for just like flowing in and out of that threshold. So you can just teach your body to start taking that lactate and repurpose it. And it will.
Well, I mean, at this point, I kind of get that through hill training. You know, when I'm riding on the flats, it's pretty aerobic. When I'm up in the hills, there's nothing I can do. These are 20 to 30 minute climbs. But
the difference here is that the terrain is forcing your hand. Yeah. I want you to force your hand on the flat. I want you to try to achieve those speeds on the flat and get into that lactate and sort that out.
Yeah.
And so it's not up to you anymore when you climb steep. You got to get into the right gears and you got to pound it out. So you don't really have any choice. You're just subject to the environment. I want the bike to be subject to your effort on the flat, because I'm not saying the course is going to be completely flat, but it's going to be way less flat than it is going to be hilly.
It's I think it is very flat, and I think it's very moderate temperature and all these things. Now, the interesting piece is you're not talking about swimming at all. So if we can, let's section this out. We're going to go swim, bike, then run. Let's talk about just the costs and expectations of each of these things. Now, as far as swimming goes, it's taking these best guys in the 40s. Probably me, I'm looking at like $115. What are your thoughts on swim? Like, just get it done? Because I'm doing like one swim a week.
Well, I can tell you for me, by the way, the last triathlon I did was Malibu Olympic distance course. I was 63 years old.
Savage.
And I, having all these years of swimming in the ocean. By the way, when I was living on Maui, just to give you a sense, when I was your age, on a weekend, I lived up on the mountain. I lived about 4,000 feet up on the mountain in Maui.
Yeah.
I would ride my bike down to Kaanapali. I would drop my bike off, swim, mile and a half, 2 miles in the ocean, have lunch with some friends and ride back. So it's an 80-mile bike ride and a 1.5, 2 mile swim every Saturday.
Sounds like you got a lot of free time, Rich.
I did. Well, that's what I did this for a living, so it was easy. But the point is that I didn't even think in terms of, oh my God, I did this big workout today, so tomorrow I shouldn't do anything. I just trained. I didn't even collect volume. I didn't think about how many miles I ran or whatever. We just did it. But so getting back to the swim, the thing that I did when I was 63 years old is I thought, you know what, I really want to improve, because I did this race, I think 3 years prior. And I said, I really want to do better in the swim. So I hired a coach. And this guy was amazing. And it was at a university. I forget the name of the university. But anyway, so I meet this guy at the pool, and he's standing over some clients, and they're swimming, and he's watching them and whatever, right? And I thought, oh, that ain't a big deal. I mean, I'm a pretty good swimmer. I thought, I'm a good swimmer. I get in the pool. He goes, swim across, to the other side and come back. And I do it, and I look at him like I'm all proud. And he goes, looks like you learned how to swim in the 70s. I said, I did. I did. But the point of the matter was, he improved my efficiency in the swim so much. And moving through the water efficiently is a skill set, much like running. The medium is different because you could feel that water. You could feel when you're doing it right and doing it wrong. Where running, you don't feel it because the medium is not as dense when you're just moving through air.
Yeah.
And he made a big difference in my swim time. And it was a struggle. I mean, I felt like an idiot in the water when he started having me do these drills and, one-legged things and, one-arm things. And he was having me doing all this weird stuff. But so you could probably, even today, if you looked for a good swim coach right now and met him that one day a week that you're going to swim, between now and then, you're probably going to shave off, I'm going to say easily you're going to shave off about 5 minutes from your swim time.
Okay, done. Done. Okay. So we got
Okay.
that. We're going from an hour 15 down to an hour and 10. Yes. Bike. I know we just went through this whole thing, but what's your estimate on the bike? What would be your game plan, and what would be
Well,
what would
so
be your
again,
game
this is
plan?
really the whole thing is about energetics. You're pointing this out. It's about how much energy you have available and how much effort you can provide with the energy you've gained.
Well,
Or-
I'm
or
assuming the
carrying
bike
with
is the best section to really stay fueled and stay hydrated.
Yeah,
Because you have the least-
that was one question that I had. How, with the amount of calories that you said you're going to burn,
You can't
how
repay the debt.
so are you just supposed to eat all that before the race?
You can't do it. So this is the interesting thing about it, is that physiologically it's almost impossible to accomplish this task without completely exploding. If you do what you're supposed or trying to do, to try to get to the 8 or 9 hour window, it's almost physiologically impossible to do it. There's much better minds than me that have been studying this for as long as I've been in this game, and they still don't quite get it. And the only conclusion, so you can't, let's say your body can take on 300 calories an hour.
Mm-hmm.
That's consumption, right? With drink, I don't care, your finest foods, whatever it is that you could possibly consume, maybe you could take on 300 calories an hour. And I already said that you're going to spend upward, let's just shave it off to say 700 calories an hour. Every hour you're in 400 calories of debt. So 400 times 8, you're 2,500 calories in debt. That's way beyond what you could possibly store in carbohydrate at any given time, even if you're completely topped off. So you are definitely dancing with the devil when you start getting 2 hours into the marathon.
I mean, this Christian Blumenfeld guy just took like 30 minutes off the world record at Ironman. I mean, these guys are just getting so much faster.
It's efficiency on the bike, man. I'm telling you, because the time and tenure, the time you spend on the bike, the time you spend in the race, you really got to hone in and make friends with your energy system in order to be as efficient. Because see, the interesting thing and the mystical thing about lactate is that as you start to generate it, which means that's a byproduct of carbohydrate metabolism, you're burning carbohydrate, you're creating lactate. So what happens to it next is what matters. If you can cause that lactate to go reside somewhere in your body and then come back to your liver a little later on and get converted to glycogen and put it back into your muscles, that's the energy rebate I'm talking about. So let's just say that you're burning 700. Let's say that your energy rebate gives you back 250. And I don't know what it is. Let's just say it's 250. But you're consuming 250. Now you got 5, right? So the debt is not as severe as it was before. And so the guys that they're not doing it on purpose, by the way. I would venture to say they don't. But intuitively, what they're doing is because they're trying to keep that intensity up and they're trying to sustain that intensity for such a great length of time, they're magically putting themselves in the right place in order to develop a capacity to gain that friend from the lactate production.
I mean,
that's my
if you look at modern day content, a lot of these guys have big YouTube channels now because the triathlon community is like the nerdiest community of them all. These guys are all day long during their training doing blood like lactate testing. And now they all have Norwegian coaches. Everybody's leaning in toward Norwegian coaches. It's crazy. I don't know. Like it seems
let's talk about blood lactate testing for a second, because this is something that I'm familiar with. Okay. The gold standard for assessment of blood lactate is that they do a step test every 2 minutes. They'll sample either through your earlobe or fingertip or what have you. And they're going to put that little sample of blood into an analyzer, and it's going to kick back how many millimoles of lactate resides in your blood at any given time.
Yes.
All right. And so the standard for determining threshold through blood lactate is 4 millimoles of lactate. When you achieve that, they go, voila, you're at your threshold, right? Now, let's take you, for example. I promise you, your sustainability of effort is well beyond 4 millimoles of lactate. And I've got people that blow up at 3 millimoles of lactate.
They're usually trying to keep these guys in the threes during their training.
That's below threshold according to their blood test, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm suggesting to you is it's a false positive. It's like they might 70% of the time hit it, where the majority of the people they test, that's their turning point, right at 4 millimoles.
Yep.
But I have people that been dancing in the sun well over that effort and can sustain great efforts well beyond what you did. We had this conversation, you and I, where You were like, hey, my heart rate's going down, my VO2 is going down, but I'm fitter than I've ever been in my life. I said, don't change a thing. This is exactly what you want to do for the sport you're involved in right now. The high intensity, short duration sport, you're just really able to sustain high intensity for an hour for the sport you're involved in. Now, if you take it to an 8-hour or 10-hour event, that dog won't hunt. We're going to need to bring that threshold back up a little bit, and we're going to need to find that fine spot between those two energy systems, from between being aerobic and anaerobic. So we need you back up to about 150 beats per minute before you start going south. Long story short, on the bike, by the way.
Well, interestingly enough, like every single season, what I end up doing is I will do a tremendous amount of like long distance randomized events like this Ironman. I always just use my off season to do shit that's crazy. I do ultras, I'll do Ironmans, whatever it may be. And typically I end up just getting really aerobically fit. And I go away from what would be the traditional, we're getting feedback, by the way, guys. What would be considered the traditional training that was necessary to win these high rocks events. And I typically end up getting pretty good. Like, you know, I do the marathons and stuff. The training is not there, the specific training, but I always accomplish a task at a pretty high level. So going into this last piece, which is the marathon, it's probably my strongest piece. And, you know, that's where I should be able to shine. But in reality, based on everything you keep on telling me, I should be dead by the time I get there and I'll just be holding on.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's going to take you longer to run that marathon than you anticipate.
I'm aiming for a 3:30. My goal is 1:15, 5:15 on the bike, and then 3:30 on the run. And
what's 3:30? Like a 7-minute pace, 7:30 pace?
Yeah, it's definitely over 7 minutes. And I think I can definitely do that. I'm just sitting here and I'm putting the math together in my head. And in reality, it's like, I believe that all of these things are very capable for me. And then I'm just going to try to shave off a couple minutes on all of these things, just, you know, through sheer luck and a little bit extra grit, like maybe just having a hard 5K or 10K at the very end of this thing, if I can suck it up. And that's how I'm going to break the 10-hour mark. If I walk away with a sub 10-hour Ironman, I will feel satisfied. It'd be like if I
three.
Yeah. And if I, like when I did that marathon, when you and I did that, you know, 10-day training camp to get ready for that marathon, I accomplished my goal. And then I wanted to do something like, you know, way harder. And I started training up to set like a 2:30 marathon, and I hurt my leg. But I don't think I'll have the same drive to do a much better Ironman. So I just want to get in, get out.
You might. You know what? It's like most people that do an Ironman, we're looking at two of them, right? So you get in there and you do it and it beats your ass. And then you think, you know, if I would adjust, you're going to have that, if I would adjust. Then you start thinking, I'm not doing this again. And then later on, it starts to itch at you and thinking, you know what, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to be a little smarter the second time and see what I can really do.
Maybe my late 30s. I mean, I've only got probably a couple more years that I really want to be in elite level sport. And I'm actually going in a totally different direction for paddling. And I know you probably have your own opinions of that, but I can't do all these things at once. This Ironman kind of fell in my lap. I want to do it. I've always wanted to do an Ironman. Ironman has inspired me since the beginning of my career. I have a great partner, Boa, that's supporting me going through this Ironman experience. And I really want to give back and prove that, like, I can do an Ironman. I can also do an Ironman using this product that they've been creating. So
from a strategy perspective, one of the things that I would suggest you do is work towards negative splits. And so in other words, when you get on the bike, I would not race out of the transition area and try to ramp that up to 26 miles per hour and just hold on to it as long as you can. That's going to be a bad move.
I'm probably going to go 18, 20, and then try to see how long I can go for 20.
Got to go perceptively, just what your body feels like. And when you start to feel like you want to hammer, start to draw it up a little bit, still reserve yourself. And the same thing applies when you do the marathon, because when you get off that bike, your legs are going to be punch drunk. Your legs are not going to want to play.
I agree with you, but I've been doing bricks for a long time. That's also been a big part of my training. You know, I've been never really good at ultra like high volume running. I've always break down. I think it's just because I'm too heavy. So I've always been a brick guy. You know, I literally made my career off of being the dude who can put more work into his legs through lifting and then get into running. That's how I won things like TMX and High Rocks and stuff. So I think that's going to be less of a challenge for me than other people would really run into. I'm not saying I'm going to be a guru at it, but I feel pretty good.
Well,
Like
I want you to call me after you do the 100-mile bike ride into a 20-mile run.
Well, I'm not going to do a 20-mile run. I don't want to do that. It's not because I'm going to get the bike ride done. It starts at 7 a.m., I think, and I'm going to go until about 1 or 2, and then I'm going to get out and just stuff some food in my face and then just go run a 10K to an 8-miler.
So I'm suggesting you go down to Malibu and you get on the PCH and you slam out a good solid 100-miler, get off the bike and just keep running until your legs tell you this ain't working anymore.
Hunter,
you need to find out where you need to find out.
Talk. You guys know I always have to pee in the middle of the show. You two talk.
This is where we normally do a spotlight break. But so did you live? Where did you live in Hawaii for that time?
I lived in Maui.
And were you Maui? Were you a professional athlete sponsored the entire time?
No. But believe me when I tell you, back then there was no such thing as a professionally sponsored triathlete.
Okay,
that didn't exist. Everybody was an amateur. There was no prize money. Incidentally, I didn't tell you this, but I will tell you now.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got a call from CBS Sports. They were looking to cover an event, and they saw my event, and they sent one of their producers out to meet with me to decide whether they wanted me to direct and produce the very first professional triathlon in the United States to be aired on television.
Wow.
And we did it on the island of Kauai. I did get the gig, and we did it on the island of Kauai in 1983.
I needed that badly, boys.
We raised $165,000 to put out in purses, which was the first time in the United States where there was money in triathlon, where you could race and earn your keep. And all of the big names were there. It was on CBS Sports. It was on Super Bowl channel, Super Bowl weekend. I came this close to becoming a millionaire. And then all the big wigs got involved, and they started, making it very difficult for me to control things. Long story short. But
I felt that way about my entire career. I first started getting into Spartan race. I was like, damn, I'm going to become a millionaire. Never panned out. Then all of a sudden I start getting really big in TV. I've got my own television show. I'm winning Broken Skull Ranch. Boom. Falls apart.
I was with you through the whole ride.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden I started to get really good at High Rocks. I'm like, this is it, baby. I'm all over the world again. Boom. Their cash prizes drop off every year. Only way to get rich is to get rich on your own. Don't depend on other people.
Right. Well, I mean, it sucks when you work hard towards something and you feel like, you're starting to finally come into your own, and then somebody pulls a rug out from under you. And, by the way, when you start getting good at something and it starts getting entertaining financially, somebody's going to try to take it away from you. That's just the nature of it, right? That's just the nature of it.
Like another competitor, or just
either a competitor or, well, in my case, because I was a producer, I was producing an event, owning an event. When they started seeing, wide world coverage on television, the marketing rights, but try to buy a commercial Super Bowl weekend and see what that cost you, right? For 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So I stood in to potentially have control of all the marketing rights for my event. And I already had letters of credit from, I can't tell you how many different sponsors that were going to pay me a ton of money just to have their name on my t-shirt and things like this. And then it ended up battling with Billie Jean King's husband, by the way, who I know sounds crazy, but she was married. Maybe still be to him, but anyway, he owned Team Tennis, and this guy had 6 different homes around the world, and his power compared to me was just brutal. The only fortunate end was that the guys at CBS were mercenaries, and they said, "Look, Richard, you're the guy that's putting this thing on. I don't care how much money he's got." The problem is I couldn't own it, so I kind of got screwed there. But that's my story.
Well, I mean, honestly, that's why we're really in our company right now are investing so much in media. Like we're putting up this podcast back again. I used to share podcasts with people and it never ended up panning out. All the greatest content that I've ever done is owned by other people. They own the rights to it. They didn't distribute it properly. All these TV networks that I work together with, they just could cut the contract at any time. So we're investing fully back into YouTube again. We've got Alex full-time in media. We're running everything behind the scenes. We're just going to build the thing back up again. A couple of my friends have several million followers on YouTube, and they own the power behind everything. Not only is the financial power there, but just the control. You literally can dictate and release episodes whenever you want. You can say whatever you want. I mean, you can't be absolutely insane, but yeah, you can say whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. You can make content about whatever you want. And if I had done this shit, when I first met you, Rich, if I had been doing this from then until now, my life would be insane. It's my only regret probably in my athletic carear.
If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a pretty foul way of looking at it, but that's my only regret, dude. And I think
we all got them. So let's get back to. I mean, we're crying on each other's shoulders right now. Let's talk about triathlon again. Let's go back to the thing that we're supposed to be talking.
Well, we were talking about the marathon. I wanted to section these pieces out and really get to understand it. So swim, we're going to work on efficiency. Bike is one of these things where you're talking about just brushing up and being able to hold that intensity and find a way to feed lactate back into yourself. Marry it on the bike, you keep on saying. Now we're on to the marathon, where it seems that like whenever I watch these Ironman races, it's where everybody dies. Why are these people dying? One, and two, how do you die less and get faster out there?
So
crawl across the finish line. I see those people and it just kills me that they can't move their arm, can't move their legs, and they're like baby crawling.
Yeah, that was Julie Moss, by the way. You take an athlete with such great talent and put her in that compromised position where she's dragging herself, just crapping her pants, and have somebody step over you right at the finish line, which was what Kathleen McCartney did to Julie Moss.
Really?
And so there's now no matter what happens when you see Julie Moss, it's always about that moment in time when she crapped herself trying to cross the finish line and getting beaten, because she actually was in the middle. She was winning. She was winning until her hand was about 20 feet to the finish line, crawling, and Kathleen McCartney stepped right over and finished and won.
Well, I mean, you got to imagine that moment probably made her more famous throughout life than if she had won the thing.
Yeah.
I think she became iconic through it.
So back to your question. And before we go back to talk about the energy costs and how come you're blowing up at the marathon, there's one thing we haven't talked about, and I just want to ask you because I think it's a critical piece of the puzzle. Did you get fitted on that bike since you bought it?
The guy who came here fitted me on it.
Did he own it?
No.
Is he a bike fitter?
I believe so, in some regard.
He measured your knee to the
well,
pedal.
So incidentally, one of the things that I learned to do in my career over the years was become a bike fitter.
Yeah.
I hired one of the best bike fitters in the United States to come and spend time with me to teach me how to fit bikes. And I don't talk about it very often because I don't like doing the work. You get greasy and it's just nasty work. But I could take a guy that comes to see me and turn a 20-mile-an-hour average into a 23-mile-an-hour average within 20 minutes after he left. It's instantaneous gratification when you're on that bike properly. And if you're trying to improve your ability to conserve energy on the bike and you're on the bike mechanically incorrect or corrupt, it's just very, very difficult to get better.
All right, I'll put it in the notes right now. Bike fitter.
Bike
We're going to look it up.
Bike fitted.
And so, incidentally, for you, there's a guy in LA. I'm trying to remember his name. I'll think of it. I'll refer you to him. He's a good bike. He's one of the best in LA, probably. And you bring your bike to him. He works out of Helen's in Santa Monica.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I've been there before.
Yeah, well, he used to work there. I don't know. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen him, but I learned about bike fitting because I hired him to work on some of my clients, and I found out what I didn't know, and it irritated me. And then I boned up and I learned how to do it, and I learned how to do it better than he did it. And by the way, that's what taught me how to get into gait analysis for runners. Because when you're on the bike, there's 5 points of interest: your hands, your feet, and your butt. Once you get those sorted out, they don't change because you're holding on to the handlebars, you're sitting on the saddle, and your feet are clipped in. So if you get it right, it's always right.
Yep, I agree. I've never bike fitted myself. I always just I was a spin instructor for years, and I kind of just would adjust people's seats all the time. So I was just
you don't even know what you don't know. I'm telling you, it's massive. It's probably you're gonna get on the bike again after you've been fitted properly, and you're gonna, oh my God, I didn't realize how much I was missing from being on this correctly. So that needs to happen because we're talking about energy, right? If you're going to lower the cost of work, improve your outcome, on a bike, that's a surefire way to get it done.
Yep.
Anyway, so let's go back to the marathon now. If you get off that bike and you hadn't been feeding properly on that bike and your tank is empty, it's a hellbound train. And so one of the things that matters is not so much just the food, your hydration strategies, and making sure your electrolyte.
Yeah, got some Noah in there.
Yeah, no. Your electrolyte levels got to be on point.
This is builder, baby.
You got to have.
I have a feeding schedule and I have a hydration schedule that's pretty set. And now I'm using it. I've got the watch, and I've got.
You got to test it. You got to test it over time. So not just because you did it for an hour or an hour and a half. You got to get out there and really start to find out what depletion feels like, and get on the other side of it. And that's why I suggested to you a brick as long as I did. You need to feel that. You need to feel the devil you're about to dance with. And you got to get close to that distance.
Dude, this Saturday.
But you keep talking about this 5-mile run after the fact. That's not enough.
Dude, you don't understand. I'm literally going to be doing an extra 2 hours on the bike. That is extra. Man, I will get you a calculator to help you out on this one.
You know what? When you get off that bike, and you start running for that 5 miles, I want you to think about me.
Thanks, Ryan.
I want you to think. I want you to think in terms of, wow, I wonder what I'm going to feel like if I'd have stayed out here for another hour and a half or 2 hours.
I just did that, Rich, by doing an extra 2 hours on the bike.
The energy cost on the bike's not the same as running. It's going to escalate.
Trying to say, man, listen, I wish that I had all of these perfect circumstances. That is just the plan for this weekend.
All right.
Christ
well, then
almighty.
Next week, the weekend after that, I highly recommend you follow what I suggested.
I got to take a week off. I've been going 4 weeks on. I'm trying to do this. I've got a schedule. I've got a ladder here. And I will text you 9:59 with a picture like this when I get finished with this thing.
And I'm going to know it's for me.
I know 100%. I will be sitting on that bike saying, F you, Rich Diaz, F you, Rich Diaz.
You know? You old man, you have
when
no
I tie
idea
my shoes, every time I do the little bunny loop, I'm like, fuck you, Rich, tie tight. Every time I eat a gel, it's going to be me biting your head off.
Hunter, do you need a crew for your Ironman?
You can't do it.
You're more than welcome to come out. Well, we have Alex. We're going to get set up with a media car, and they're going to have him out there. So
he can't feed you.
I know he can't feed me. I'm not talking about feeding. I'm talking about just the media crew. I don't think I don't expect that we're going to get any extenuating circumstances and you guys being able to rub my feet and feed me food. But
so the other consideration, by the way, that we haven't discussed, it's kind of off point, but
the sun,
don't draft.
Oh yeah, I get that.
You got to make sure, and you know that can I tell you something? Everybody cheats. When you get out there on the bike course, people are thinking, I'm way out here in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's going to see me sucking tire behind this guy, so I'm just going to do it. They all cheat. So
are you not allowed to draft?
No.
Really?
No. I it's not been on my mind, so I can't remember the actual distance. I think it's about when you get within. I think when you get within like 10 or 20 feet of somebody's back tire, you need to make a decision. You're either going to pass them or back off.
Yeah, I don't like drafting anyways. I've just seen too many shitty things happen on like big group rides and stuff. I don't like being near people. So I understand the potency of having a good backdraft, but like Not interested.
I pulled a guy. I did a triathlon in Alabama. I pulled a guy, the guy that won the race. I pulled him for the entire bike ride. And I was so proud of myself because I was ahead of him the whole way.
Yeah.
You know, I was leading the damn race all the way through the bike ride. And this guy's on my tire like nobody's business. And I'm like, yeah, come on, man, let's go. And I'm encouraging him. And when I got off the bike, I was like dead meat. And off he went to win that race handily.
You know what my biggest worry is? I think I'm going to be bored. I do not know what I'm going to say or do or think of. You can't listen to music.
For 5 hours.
Yeah. I mean, I may be able to talk. You can't talk to people in the swim. You're going to be 10 to 20 feet apart from people on the bike. They're not listening. They're not going to talk to you. That's 5 hours of dead silence.
Wait, you said you can't listen to music?
Nope. You're not allowed to have headphones on these things.
That's against the rules.
Safety.
Well, the problem is that they want you to be able to be cognizant of what's going on around you. If you got your ears plugged up with something, that's not good. Not only that, but they're fearing somebody might be coaching you too.
Yeah. Okay, so we still have not come to a really good answer about the marathon. We keep on bopping around.
Well, I told you what the problem is. It's going to be about how you get off that bike. And if you're cramping, which a lot of people do, you see them, they're walking. They're not walking because they're depleted so much as that their electrolyte levels are gone. They've sweated out everything they have in their body, and their muscles are just locking up. They're not able to function. But can I tell you something? That if they start hydrating and start taking on fluids and whatever, they start getting their game back. So you just need to make sure that when you get off, you can hit the ground running because you took care of that business on the bike. And that's going to encourage you.
Obviously, fuel well before the swim, get out of the swim. I'm obviously going to have everything set up on the bike, hit a quick gel, get on the bike. I'm going to be taking down 24 ounces to 30 ounces of water with a scoop of builder in each one and eat on the bike. And then when I get off the bike, I'm going to be doing BOA and water bottles the rest of the way.
How many times are you going to have to get off and pee?
I'll pee all over myself. What are you talking about?
There's classes on that.
Dude,
on how to pee during the race?
I can pee my pants
what you're supposed to do is just piss on yourself.
It's an anxiety thing. People get anxious about it. I could piss all over myself. I used to be able to whip it out while we were riding, and I'd try to pee on my friend while we were riding, Matt Kempton. It was a skill. It was a skill. He was amazed. I'm not worried about that, But I guess, yeah, at this point, man, like I've only got 5 weeks of training left. I guess I could, at this point, I'm going to do the bricks. I'm going to do the 1 week, day a week of swimming. At this point, 9:59.
So are you swimming? Are you swimming in open water, or are you swimming in a pool?
Open water.
Where?
Crestline, my cabin.
On a lake.
The water a little chilly up there?
That's not that bad. I'll probably swim this weekend without a wetsuit. I'm going to swim today. I'm going to go down. I'm going to run down. I'm going to swim for a bit, and then I'm going to run back up.
Dude, if you got access to the open swim like that, you should swim more often.
I just hate it. That's why.
But it's good for recovery. It's actually a good recovery effort.
I'm sure you're right.
And do
about
bricks
that.
like that too. Transition is not that important in Ironman because you could take your time, make sure you get your socks on, make sure you get all your business organized. Because you got time. I mean, if you take 5 minutes making sure you're organized in the transition area, it's going to pay dividends on the run and the bike. So.
Yeah, well, I've been working on that. I'm going to work on a really clean transition out of this, get off the bike, and then literally get straight to shoes on, sip of water, and hydration belt, and just go.
Hunter, have you thought about reaching out to the Iron Cowboy?
The Iron Cowboy?
What do you think about that, Rich? Iron Cowboy.
I don't know what the value would be in that.
I don't think so. It's pretty interesting. Like, I'm sure all of these guys have some kind of insight. But there's a huge difference between the journeyman and the athlete, I believe. Like, I'm not trying to be the journeyman. These guys are out there accomplishing tasks. I want to excel. And that's why we have Rich on here. Like, if I just wanted to accomplish tasks, I would not have called Rich. I'm calling Rich because I'm like, I want to break 10 hours. And, we've talked all the time.
Don't hand me 6 weeks and say, look, I need to do something crazy.
Dude, I've never done it any other way. So what do you?
I know that.
You're not the guy doing it. You're not the guy doing it. I'm just asking for some answers.
That's always the way it's been. So, the other thing you said earlier today was I got 5 weeks left, but next week I'm taking a week off.
Yeah.
So you really got 4 weeks left.
Yeah.
And then you got a taper, so you really got 3 weeks left.
You know how it is, man. You got to go up, you got to go down, you got to go up.
You do that when you got time. If you got 6 weeks, you can't take a week off.
Well,
You know, I mean, I'm with you. Take a couple days here and there, but dude, you're running with the devil right now. You got like so much less time than you need.
well, the only thing is I mean, we just did 15 miles this weekend, and it was piece of cake. We did the
running.
70. What's that?
Running, right?
Yeah, piece of cake. We did the 3 miles, and then we did the swim, which was 2,000 to 2,500 meters. Like, you know, obviously it's not full distance on any of them, but all of them were separate. But at the same time, I was like, I don't feel that bad. I mean, listen, I will survive for sure.
So let me put it into a context I think will really resonate with you.
Oh,
I call you up and say, look, I'm doing high rocks.
Mhm.
And you know what? What I've been doing with my training is I get on the skier, I can do 1,000 kilometers. And then I run 1,000 kilometers on Monday. And so I'm picking these little things, bits and pieces like that. But I never really threw down. I never really got it into that paint where I'm in it, my fatigue's really setting in, and then I'm trying to run. What are you going to tell me? You're going to tell me, well, wait a minute, right?
I agree where you're coming with, Rich. I agree. There's nothing you're saying that is completely wrong, but it's also not completely right. You and I both know that I've done more of these things across more boundaries than pretty much anybody. And by the way, I watched a video today of fucking Nick Bear saying he was the original hybrid athlete. And I've got nothing against that guy, but you're a motherfucker to say that, dude. There's people before me. There's people before you. I'm before you, way fucking before you, brother. And there's people way before me that have done incredible shit. And just because you have a fucking
got his
YouTube
dander
channel
up, didn't he?
does not mean that you are the original, bro. That is not even close.
Well, it's really tough to use that term in context with anything.
But you and I both know, man, you've probably met freaks that are just like me decades ago. You knew a Hunter McIntyre in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. You know what I mean? There's always
you're
been
pretty unique. Yeah, I got to hand it to you. You're pretty unique. I mean, I've run into some crazy athletes in my day, but you've got some pretty unique talents, and I'll give you credit for that.
Listen, and I give myself credit for it. I just wrote on his post, I just said, I have 9 world titles that say differently, brother. That's just what I wrote. And I'm not trying to weigh down on him, but you can't make that. You can't make that.
He's just
It's a
proud
very
of himself.
bold statement.
What's that?
That's a very bold statement for everyone and
It's
everything.
not bold,
That's out.
it's just flat out wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I walked in, this is probably not even worth discussing, but I walked into a guy's place, a training facility. And he, by the way, he called it, I'm not going to tell you who it was, but he called it something the Academy.
Yeah.
And on his front desk, it was like a little thing that said he's the number 2 best trainer in the world.
Yeah.
Number 2. And so I'm there. The reason I'm there is to teach him something. I mean, I was brought there to teach him something. And I'm thinking, well, geez, he's number 2. I know I'm not 1. I know I'm not number 1. I don't even think I'm not probably in the top 10.
Yeah.
I said, and here I am coming to teach this guy something. And on his front desk, he's got that little placard trying to take credit for being number 2.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad, you know. I mean, this is egotistical crap. People they're so full of themselves, they don't get a chance to see reality. That's all it is.
I'll put it to you this way. I have several friends that competed against me in Broken Skull Ranch, and for years they had it on the link in their bio for Instagram, Broken Skull Champion. I also bumped into a guy at a cafe the other day, and I told him I was doing an Ironman. He's like, oh, I took second place at that Ironman. Then I went to go look at him. He took second place in his fucking age group.
Yeah,
like,
they do that.
I was like, you guys got to wake up and understand what you're saying and also recognize where you stand in line.
Can I tell you something? I think I even know who you're talking about.
You might.
Is it in California?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I bet you I know who it is because the guy came into my shop and he was banging that drum. And I'm looking at him going, well, let me see now. I've been in triathlon quite a long time and I know all the top athletes in the world. And I don't remember seeing your face or your name ever anywhere.
Yeah, if that's the
I didn't
case,
say
I
that
got
to
a
him,
lot
but I
of
was
bragging
thinking
to
that.
do.
In the same sentence, by the way, he goes, "Oh, I'm doing the real Ironman next week." And I was like, "Did you just say that you're doing the real Ironman and mine's a fake one?" Is what he was trying to say. Like, and I get it. Ironman Kona is definitely a big beast in itself, but there's a certain kind of ego behind it. We kind of got off track. But
Right, I know. We do that.
figure eight, we're looping back into the center. I respect everything that you're saying, and I will put the work in, but all I've got on my side is experience. And I'm just going to expect that experience is going to outweigh the work that was necessary to do what I want to do. And
Well,
I know that it's
listen, so two things. Number one, you made a comment that I'm a little bit right, but I'm also a little bit wrong. I'm never wrong. Okay. So just to be clear.
you're never wrong at all. You're an ass. That's what you are.
And I will listen. You are absolutely the number one wild card. I would suggest that if anybody is going to be able to pull it off, it would be you. But being the guy that I am and coming from where I come from, I just know the misery that's going to come about late in that run.
How about this? I don't know how we're legally able to do this, but I will buy you whatever bottle of booze that you want, and you buy me whatever bottle of booze I want. I want Johnny Walker Blue Label. I like it.
Ooh.
Okay?
You
What
got
do
to break
want,
10?
Rich? What's that?
To break 10?
Yeah.
You break 10, I'll buy you a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue.
And I'm not talking about one of those gas station flasks.
No,
I want myself a nice
you know me better than
700.
that. I don't play like that. I'll step up. I will get you that bottle. Now, having said that,
What's the
What do you
reverse?
want?
you heard him say that any bottle I want, right?
Yeah.
What do you want? The Conte Monte Cristo?
No. I'm gonna look
Louis
for.
the 13th?
I'm probably gonna look for a single malt Scotch out of. Let's see. What do I like? I think like a Belvany 30 would be good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that is. I've heard of it.
It's only gonna be $1,000.
All right. If that's what we have to do, that's what we have to fucking do. Okay.
I'm so glad we got this
here.
recorded.
How the hell, by the way, just so that we can understand the logistics of this, how do I
Drizzly
buy
is selling that for $1,999.
There
Wow.
you go.
That was a dick move, Rich. That was a dick move. How do you even purchase that?
Versus your okay, Hunter, you got to ask for slightly. You got to reach up because your bottle is $200.
You realize
get
it's too late, right?
What's that?
He already put it down. He
No,
likes
it's all right.
blue.
It's all right. It's like my
No,
dad.
so
Every
look,
single
I'm a
time
gentleman.
Christmas comes
He's
around
got
with
a
my dad, he goes,
$2,500 bet.
Look, I'm a gentleman, and I'm not one to punch down. So here's what I'll do: we'll match dollar for dollar. You pick something for me.
Whatever you feel comfortable with, because I'm a high stakes person and I need these kind of things. I have $1,000 bet running with my other friend right now. He's my best friend, first friend from college. He's become a fat tank of a man. He's an Apache pilot in Korea. And this dude barely can fit in his helicopter anymore. And he just keeps on getting thicker. And I'm like, dude, you got to change your fucking life. And I was like, you could never get down to 200 again. He goes, yeah, I could. And I was like, okay, $1,000. And he's literally got 30, 40 more days to get it. And he's like in the high 2 teens, but fucking A, man, I don't mind losing the $1,000 because it's going to make his life better if he really pulls it off. And it will make my life better if I end up losing this bet with you, because I'm just like, it's going to make me hungry. I hate losing.
Yeah. Well, look, if you told me I got to get back down to 200 pounds, I wouldn't have took that bet.
Yeah. Well, okay. So we've got our bet. You went way out of the lanes, and you decided to get some kind of rare bottle of rum that the Conte Monte Cristo used to keep in his castle, which is a dick move. But at the same time, I'm a man of my word, I guess.
I just listened to what you said. I lit up when you said any bottle you want. I mean, to be honest with you, I could have gone a lot further than that.
This is exactly what my dad does. My dad and you are around the same age, so I understand where it's coming from now. When Christmas comes around, it's time to get each other's gifts. My dad will send me like a picture. He's like, what do you think about this watch? And then I click on it and I see the price. And I was like, what are you thinking, Dad? Like, this is like your 75th birthday kind of gift. This is not it's Christmas or your birthday kind of gift. He just always, when it's time for him to get a gift, he puts these outlandish things out there.
Well, you realize that I'm in 2 months, less than 2 months, I'll turn 70.
I know. I said,
It was
listen,
So it's going to be
I
like a
told you. I
birthday
told
gift.
you if you go to Cabo, I'll come.
I'm
You said
going.
you're going. Aren't you going to Cabo?
Yeah, come on. No, I'm
That's
going
it.
to Cancun.
Cancun. Oh, listen. What? It's a prison sentence. I can't go to Cancun. Yeah, I'll come. Yeah, man. I need a vacation anyways. We work too hard.
Oh my God. This
Okay,
place is
so
awesome.
we've got our bets. I've got to go to a bike fitter. You assume 11. I'm assuming sub 10. Anything else you'd want the listeners to know about and be aware of about this mission? Anything, just because we're about to sign off.
Well, it's a lofty goal, and it's not surprising to me that you would throw something like this at me. You've always done it, and so if you pull it off, I'm proud of you. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to sing songs all the way to the liquor store to get your bottle of Johnny Walker Blue. I'm going to do it, and I'll be pleased to have done it.
These right here, these are the winning glasses.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? Because anybody who's listening to this, I got to just cue off. Rich is the reason why I have run at the level that I have run from probably 2015 is when we really started to change things. And I use his skills and I use him as an asset and a coach and a voice on everything that I do. That's why he's on here right now. So anybody who is in the world of high rocks, Decafit, triathlon, Spartan race, if you have any need for coaching when it comes to really understanding what the body is doing and also the ability to move through time and space as an efficient runner rather than just a runner, I would call Rich. I would call Rich immediately. He's always the person that I lean on. If anybody has questions with me about like running for him, I point them to Rich. I know how to get you strong. I know how to get you fit, but I will not do what Rich does. And I do not have the science and the background that Rich does. Obviously, he was saying 41 years he's been doing this triathlon game. So very valuable dude, worth the time and any dollar you spend.
So appreciate it. But they could find me at Diaz, D-I-A-Z, Human Performance. You can see it next to my name, .com, DiazHumanPerformance.com.
I like this. What about you? What about you, Diamond Dave? These are some really old school biking glasses that I got to race in the Spartan Games last year.
Thank you.
And I just found them, so I put them on today.
So I have a pair, by the way, and I tried to get you a gig with these guys once upon a time. You'll probably remember it. Rudy Project.
Yeah, I love Rudy.
Their glasses are the impact resistant glasses that change color with the light and whatever. I get on my bike. I was on my bike yesterday with them. They're amazing glasses.
Rudy, if you guys want to hook us up,
yeah,
we got an Ironman to do.
I tried, man. They didn't want to give you the money. You wanted a lot of money. They weren't going to give it to you.
Listen, what people don't get is how expensive being a high-level athlete is. There's a book that says being a pro cyclist for under $10 a day. That's an interesting book. Good for him. The boat that I'm buying for trying to get to the Olympics, $5,000. The boat rack, another $1,000. The going into the water every single day at the marina, more money. The gas that I'm spending, the food that I'm spending, all these kind of things. And then I get contacted by sponsors all the time. They're like, do you mind if we staple our logo to your forehead for an affiliate link? And I'm like, hey, you know what? If you value me, you'll pay me because you see value in my audience. You see value in my accreditation, the fact that I'm winning these things. And like you guys are valuing me at zero. That's what you're giving me. That's what I always have these conversations with sponsors. I'm no longer a complainer. Guess what? I decided to stop complaining and I built my own companies. Mm-hmm. And now we've got House. It's an incredible global training company. We've got Builder. It's a nutrition company that athletes around the world are buying like crazy now. And I don't have to tell anybody that I'm not going to post for them because I post for myself now. And if somebody wants to send me glasses, I tell everybody, I'm like, you can send me stuff, but I'm not going to work a deal with you. I'd rather just be Hunter McIntyre at this point. And we're fucking doing it well, baby.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. A good place to be, man. The sponsorship game, I am grateful for anybody who has supported me up until this point. But let me tell you, those days are done.
BOA is still a sponsor.
Oh, yeah. By the way,
BOA.
I'm saying anybody who sponsored me and helped me out, I'm very, very, very grateful. But there's people that understand the game that we're in and they support it. And BOA, literally, they signed on with me when they first started this thing. And we've been talking every single day since and trying to find products and opportunities for them to grow. BOA, forever grateful. But the rest of the world, like, unless I'm fully aligned with the idea of it, it's not necessary. I want to keep on tackling my own goals on my own side and on my own terms. Look at this. I learned this. What does that say?
Own
Own
everything you do.
you do.
I have that up here on my desk. I learned this about 2 years ago, and I just had to have this conversation with myself. I said, you know what, Hunter? You've been waiting for other people to call you and ask for you to join the party. Why don't you just start a fire in your backyard and get yourself a rack of ribs and start calling people over to your house instead?
I'm thinking about doing that, by the way.
We're going to have a luau?
I've got a Traeger grill.
Mm.
You familiar with those?
Yeah, I love those things.
Yeah, I got a Traeger grill. I got a porch. I got a humidor full of Cuban cigars. We're going to get that Johnny Walker Blue, and we'll just sit back there with a rack of ribs.
I honestly think
Cuban cigars.
You know what's really popular these days, and I'm going to sign off on this just because we got another call in 3 minutes, but you should do something called Rich's Roost or something like that, where there's these things now where these men's groups, and it doesn't always have to be specific to your sex, but a lot of groups, they're having these people kind of come in underneath a chieftain like yourself, where you're advising everybody, giving them life advice, training advice, business advice. And these groups are massive. Ends up just being somebody you would never think to run the business. And then you find out they have hundreds, if not thousands of members, and they need a guru. Rich, that could be you. You could be the new Tennessee Titan.
That's some heavy lifting there.
No, not at all, man, dude. All you got to do is just have a box of cigars and a grill and sit down and leave.
You set the host site.
You know, something funny, and I know you got to get off, but real quick. My wife got invited to a book reading thing. It's called Bordeaux and Books. We're new in that neighborhood, right? So she went. She was a pioneer. She went and visited these girls. And I said, you know, I should do a cigar thing. I'll just put in everybody's mailbox in the neighborhood. I'm hosting a cigar get together. You know, bring your favorite cigar and let's have a drink.
Made a huge mistake just recently this summer buying all the Groomsmen cigars at the shop in Geneva, Switzerland. First of all, Geneva, Switzerland should be the red flag right there. I spent like $230 on 6 cigars.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's not too bad.
Well, listen, I'm not over here saying, oh, I need a soup kitchen to help, get me out of this financial debt. But it was alarming to see how expensive those cigars were.
Yeah, trust me. Now you're in my wheelhouse again.
All right. Maybe
right, thank you so much, guys.
You're lucky.
Ryan, thank you so much for your efforts.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you both.
Yep.
I'll let you go.
Guys, I'm going to sign off on this. If you are interested in anything that's going on, I say Rich is the greatest resource probably on this podcast. In second place, you got Ryan. Third place, you got me. Everybody over at House Training is looking forward to seeing you guys join our winter training camp. We have some big things going on. If you need any information, the link is going to be in the bio of this, or just shoot me a DM and I'll give you guys some more information. If you are doing events like Ironmans, DecaFit, High Rocks, OCR, or a CrossFitter, Builder Sports is an incredible company that I created a couple years ago, and I am really looking forward to improving athletic performances around the world. We are building better athletes. So 2 companies that are supporting everything that we're doing, and honestly, I can say they came from the heart, and I believe in them fully. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll be back again.
Peace out.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming on.